Sometime after Esther became queen, a powerful man named Haman rose to become the king's highest official. Haman was second only to King Ahasuerus himself. The king had commanded everyone to bow before Haman whenever he passed by. Everyone obeyed, except Mordecai. Because he was a Jew, Mordecai refused to bow, reserving such honor for God alone. Enraged, Haman's hatred grew beyond Mordecai as he plotted to destroy every Jew in the empire. He approached King Ahasuerus, accusing the Jews of disobedience and lawlessness, and offered a large sum of money to fund their destruction. The king agreed, removing his royal signet ring and giving it to Haman to seal the decree. So was the decree sent out across the empire, announcing that on the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews, men, women, and children, were to be killed and their property taken. When Mordecai learned of the terrible decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and wept at the city gate. Throughout every province of the empire, the Jewish people mourned deeply. Esther's maids and her eunuch came in and told her what was happening. Then was the queen exceedingly grieved, and she sent raiment to clothe Mordecai and to take away his sackcloth from him. But Mordecai refused to wear them. Then Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs assigned to attend her, and ordered him to find out what was troubling Mordecai and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. Mordecai then told him everything that had happened, mentioning Haman's evil plot and imploring Esther to go before the king and plead for her people's lives. And Hathach came and told Esther the words of Mordecai. But Esther was afraid, for anyone who approached the king without being summoned could be executed on the spot, unless the king extended his golden scepter as a sign of favor. Then she instructed him to remind Mordecai that she had not been called to see the king for 30 days. Mordecai replied that she should not think she would escape simply because she was in the palace. He told her that if she remained silent, help for the Jews would come from elsewhere. But perhaps she had been placed in the kingdom for such a time as this. Moved by his words, Esther made a bold decision. With unwavering courage, she resolved to risk her life to approach the king and save her people. But before indulging, she asked Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Shushan to fast for her for 3 days and nights, no food, no drink. She told him that she and her maids would fast as well, and at the end of the fast, she would go to the king, even though it was against the law, mentioning that, "If I perish, I perish." On the 3rd day of the fast, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace. A heavy silence filled the room. When King Ahasuerus saw her, he was pleased and extended his golden scepter, granting her permission to approach. The king asked Esther what she desired. Esther did not rush her request. With divine wisdom, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. At the feast, the king once again asked her what she wished for, even offering her up to half his kingdom. But Esther asked them to come to a second banquet the next day, promising to reveal her request then. That day, Haman left the banquet joyful, but when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate and observed that he neither bowed nor showed reverence in his presence, his joy turned to furious rage. When Haman returned home and told his wife and friends about Mordecai's constant refusal to bow in his presence, they urged him to execute Mordecai. So Haman built a gallows 50 cubits high, where he would hang Mordecai upon it. He planned to ask the king's permission to carry out the execution the very next morning. But that night the king was restless. He could not sleep. So he ordered the Book of the Chronicles, the royal records, to be brought in and read to him. And by divine timing, the story of Mordecai saving his life was read aloud. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, 2 of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate the king. Curious, the king asked what honor Mordecai had received for this service. The servants replied, "Nothing has been done for him." Just then, Haman entered the court, eager to ask permission to hang Mordecai. But before he could speak, the king asked, "What should be done for the man the king wishes to honor?" Certain the king was speaking of him, Haman eagerly described the highest honor imaginable: to be clothed in the king's own royal robes, seated on the king's horse, and led through the city streets by a noble prince, while proclaiming, "This is what is to be done for the man the king delights to honor." The king found this idea just perfect, and he ordered Haman to go immediately and do all of this for Mordecai the Jew. Hearing this, Haman was in total shock and absolute disbelief, but he had no choice but to obey. Shattered and disgraced, he did as the king ordered. Haman got the robe and the horse, he robed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, "This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor." Afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home, with his head covered in grief, and told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. While they were still discussing what had happened, the king's eunuchs arrived and quickly summoned Haman to the banquet Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet, and as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king again asked, "Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given to you. What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." With courage and grace, Esther revealed her true identity as a Jew and pleaded for her life and the lives of her people. She told the king that she and her people had been sold to destruction, targeted for annihilation. Furious, the king demanded to know the name of the person responsible. Esther answered boldly, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Enraged beyond measure, the king got up, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. Now Haman, realizing that the king had already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling upon Esther's couch, begging for mercy. This appeared to the king as though Haman was attempting to assault the queen right there in the royal hall. Immediately, the king's anger exploded, and the guards rushed forward and covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the king's eunuchs, informed him that a pole reaching to a height of 50 cubits stood by Haman's house, that he had it set up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king ordered Haman to be seized and executed on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. That same day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman, and Mordecai came into the presence of the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had reclaimed from Haman, and presented it to Mordecai, and Esther appointed him over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king, falling at his feet and weeping. She begged him to put an end to the evil plan of Haman, which he had devised against the Jews. She mentioned she couldn't bear seeing all her people executed. Then the king held out the golden scepter toward Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king. The king turned to Queen Esther and Mordecai, saying, "Because Haman attacked the Jews, I have given his estate to Esther, and he has been executed on the pole he built for Mordecai. Now write another decree in my name for the good of your people. Seal it with the royal ring, for once a law is sealed in the king's name, it cannot be undone." Immediately the king's scribes were summoned. It was the 23rd day of the 3rd month, the month of Sivan. Under Mordecai's direction, they began to write a new decree, one that would reach every province in every language spoken under the vast Persian Empire. Mordecai wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed each scroll with the royal signet ring. Then the decree was sent out by swift couriers riding the king's finest horses. This new decree gave the Jews the right to defend themselves, to gather, to fight back, and to destroy anyone who sought to harm them or their families. They were also permitted to take possession of their enemies' goods. The day appointed for this defense was the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar. Across the empire, from the citadel of Susa to the distant provinces, the decree spread like wildfire. Where fear once ruled, hope began to rise. The Jews now had permission, not to seek vengeance, but to survive. And as the couriers raced through the land, the people realized what man had meant for their destruction, God was now using for their deliverance. When the appointed day arrived, the Jews triumphed over their enemies throughout the empire. Fear of them fell on all peoples, and many officials came to their aid. Mordecai was promoted to a high position in the kingdom. He was second in charge after King Ahasuerus, and his fame spread far and wide. Peace and security filled the land. To commemorate this great deliverance, the Jewish people established the Feast of Purim, named after the pur, or lot, that Haman had cast to determine their destruction. It became a yearly celebration of joy and thanksgiving, a lasting reminder that what was meant for evil, God turned for good. The story concludes with Mordecai honored throughout the empire, second only to King Ahasuerus himself. But the true hero of this story was Esther, a courageous woman who risked everything to save her people. Though God's name is never directly mentioned in the book, his fingerprints are everywhere, moving behind the scenes through Esther's bravery, Mordecai's wisdom, and the unfolding of events that saved an entire nation. Before Esther ever stepped into the king's court, she stepped into a season of fasting. She knew the battle could not be won by words alone, so she humbled herself before God. She fasted, she prayed, and heaven responded. Fasting aligned Esther's heart with God's will. Fear gave way to faith. Weakness was transformed into strength, and preparation met divine power. When Esther fasted, God moved behind the scenes, softening hearts, shifting circumstances, and opening doors no one else could open. That same power is available for us today. When we fast, we surrender control. We quiet our flesh. We invite God to move in ways we cannot see. Fasting is not about hunger, it's about dependence. It is the place where courage is born and destinies are unlocked. Like Esther, there are moments when fasting prepares us for the very breakthrough we're praying for. Because when we fast, God moves powerfully on our behalf.